Maybe press will help us to open our second panel. Please. So we came we come to our second panel. This panel is organized in association with Parliament Foreign Affairs Committee, and I welcome the representative, Mr. Bodis. Without any doubt, the great interest in this seminar is also partly down to our next guest today, Mr. Tony Blair, former British Prime Minister, who has flown in from Israel this morning. Thank you for accepting our invitation and being with us today. A special representative to the quartet in the Middle East, Mr. Blair is familiar with the position of the parties involved, with the obstacles to finding mutually acceptable solutions. When we thought about organizing this seminar, we started from the need for an approach as politically neutral as possible, although the resolution of this conflict will only come from political decisions. Nevertheless, there are times when entirely political approaches can lead to a wrong direction or to a dead end. Therefore, we have focused in our debates on development, humanitarian aid and economic cooperation in Gaza and the West Bank. We look forward to hear the point of view of Mr. Tony Blair, who can provide us with a clearer picture of the area and priorities of development aid, mixed, of course, with political solutions that the EU and the international community can offer to the West Bank and Gaza. Mr. Blair, I invite you to share your views with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. And thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to address these words to you today. And I thought what might help is to start with an overview of the situation and then go directly to the work that we do. And I want to begin, if I may, by thanking the European Union for the work and support they give to the Palestinian Authority. The European Union is the biggest supporter and donor of the Palestinian Authority, and I'll say in a moment how some of that money is used and how it works for the benefit of the Palestinian people. But as has just been mentioned, I've come literally overnight from the region. I had discussions in Jerusalem yesterday with the Israeli leadership, and I was there a few days before discussing with both the Israeli and the Palestinian leadership the way forward. You will all know how difficult it's been over the past days, and there are two essential questions. The first is, how do we move from where we've been, which is a tragic situation in which there has been the loss of life of young Palestinians and a lot of tension between Israelis and Palestinians in the past days. How do we move from that to a point of political negotiation? And secondly, how do we ensure that a Palestinian state becomes a closer possibility? And how do we ensure that the aspirations of the Palestinian people for statehood are realized? In respect to the first, the political negotiations, Senator Mitchell, as you know, is handling those negotiations. The idea is to try and get proximity talks going between Israelis and Palestinians over the coming days, and then over the coming weeks and months to turn those into direct negotiations on all the core issues. That work proceeds as we speak now. The Israeli Prime Minister will meet President Obama tomorrow in Washington. In respect of the work that we do particularly, the work that I do is really focused on the Palestinian economy and on capacity building for the Palestinian Authority. And I want to emphasize right at the very outset to you why I think this work, which I call the ground up, the bottom up approach, is so vitally important. The truth is, if we want to create a two-state solution, the only basis of doing so is a basis upon which Israel believes that its security will be guaranteed. And the Palestinians believe that if they take the measures necessary to build capacity, they will be allowed to have their state, to govern it, to run it as they wish. And that state should be an independent, viable political state. If we are to do that, then issues to do with the rule of law, with capacity, with institution building, with the economy on the Palestinian side are absolutely central. The work that we do is really geared to that end. And it was launched at the conference in Paris in 2007, where under France's leadership, we achieved actually the largest amount of donor support the international community has ever given to the Palestinian Authority. Most of that has been honored, I may say, unusual for such commitments in my experience. And as a result of that, over the past 2 years, significant progress has been made in building the Palestinian institutions. Today on the West Bank, despite all the problems and all the difficulties, the Palestinian Authority, under the leadership of Prime Minister Fayyad, is engaged in a major rule of law program. And this, incidentally, is particularly where European support is based, not least in European support for civil policing. In many of the main towns and areas of the West Bank, Palestinian police now keep law and order. There are new court facilities being built, new prison facilities, prosecutors are being trained. The Palestinian Authority in the last year has handled roughly more, I think almost twice as many cases as were handled in the previous 10 years. So there's been an increase in that capacity on the Palestinian side, despite all the difficulties that the Palestinian Authority face. At the same time, there has been some, very partial, but some release of restrictions on access and movement. This is work we do particularly. Still many restrictions remain. It's part of our function and task to try and get those brought down, but many of the main arterial routes, north to south at least, on the Palestinian territory in the West Bank, many of those checkpoints are either open or partially removed. As a result of that, the economy has grown. The Palestinian economy last year grew by roughly 7%, probably a little more so, at least in nominal terms, on the West Bank. But there is still an immense amount to do. Let me just give you a little analysis of some of the... Do you wish me to be shorter or longer? Shorter, longer?
15 minutes, but
Huh?
we have 15 minutes and then maybe we will some exchange of views.
You want me to go for 50 minutes or you want me less than 50 minutes? I do whatever you want. I'm used to this.
So another 10 minutes perhaps.
Okay. Don't worry. I will get that right. 10 minutes. If you take the measures that we are working on now, we work particularly on a number of different things. First of all, to try and get even more freedom for Palestinian security forces on the West Bank. Secondly, to get the major industrial parks and economic projects going on the West Bank. There are around about 5 industrial parks that we're trying to get support for right now. Some of them will begin over the next few months. There is major packages planned in respect of tourism and other economic projects on the West Bank, all of which will help in terms of jobs and prosperity.